My name is John Lee. I'm the Director of Product Management at Doublehorn. So my background is in Agile software development framework, lots of sprints and Kanban cards and retrospectives and backlog grooming, fun stuff like that. Prior to that, I spent a number of years in the public sector working with state agencies, evaluating emerging technology. So I've been on both sides of the fence.
So my name is Tom Vu. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect for Science Logic. We make a unified monitoring platform that allows you to monitor hybrid clouds. I've been in the IT industry for over 25 years, primarily in service assurance monitoring and IT automation.
Larry Ledesma, I'm also at Science Logic. I am the Regional Sales Manager for Central U.S., South Central U.S. I'm just my first job out of college. No, I'm just kidding. I've been in the industry 20 plus years. So
that's funny. So John, let's kick it off. CSB. Let's start a little definition around CSB. It is an eye of the beholder type thing. Everybody's got a different view. CSB and the advantages, kind of the high level from your perspective, just to set the context.
Yeah, this term Cloud Services Brokerage is relatively new, and you can read a lot of different definitions about it. I think one of the literatures on your table from Government Technology does a great job explaining it, talking through some of the advantages and benefits of using a broker. Essentially, it's instead of a customer going to all the different service providers directly, finding a single point of contact that has the relationship with a lot of different partners, and you can just go through that single channel. There are a lot of benefits, as we heard throughout the day. I just wanted to touch on three real quick ones. The first one is the expertise. I think that became apparent with all the discussions we've had. A cloud services broker can really provide that extra skill set that's not with a traditional Java developer or a DBA. You can't just tell them to go spin this up in the cloud. It's a completely different skill set. The second advantage I would say is governance and compliance. I think Tab mentioned this in the very beginning. He mentioned shadow IT. And Rudy also mentioned, businesses, the business units, they're going out and finding their own solutions and not vetting it through IT. And it worked great for some, but other times it can put your agency at risk. When you create an account, you're essentially agreeing to those terms of services. And so if you have a broker that has the relationships, you can just go to their catalog and go through the approved vendor list. And then the third one, it would be the operations, I would say. Yeah. Who wants to receive 4 different bills from 4 different service providers 4 different times in a month? Why not get a single bill that can break down all the details of your pricing so you know exactly how much you're spending in cloud?
Yeah, so also in terms of you look at why we're looking at cloud and why cloud is gaining traction. The two major factors is cost, right? Everybody's thinks that they're going to save money by going to the cloud, but also they want the agility of the cloud. But you can't just give your consumers cloud because you give them the AWS account or whatever account, and they can pretty much do whatever they want. It becomes, again, shadow IT, kind of the wild, wild west. So what a broker does is it allows you to give that the cost advantage and the agility to your end users, but still maintaining control and compliance. So making sure that the things, the services they purchase or they procure are compliant. They're backed up, as we talked about. Are they secure? All those things that pretty much have to come with that services that they're procuring without having to burden them with a lot of process, right? So still giving them that agility, but maintaining control.
What's your opinion, Larry?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's always, knowledge is the key, just like in anything, right? And the more knowledge you have, and it's really about how you align your skill set of your IT staff with those that are required for the cloud, and that's where CSB can come into play here, right? If you lack some of those skills or don't necessarily have all the skill sets that are required to, say, deploy a certain business solution or business practice out to the cloud, then that's where a CSP can come and use that expertise.
John, as we look at other industries, there's this common reference all the time, the Expedia, right? Expedia kind of became this the CSP for the travel agencies, but that was really only came about because finally the travel agent or the airlines allowed transparency. Before that, it would have been a guess, right? There had to be transparency into where there's a glut, where there's supply, where there's demand, and then they had to come up with some pricing model. So there was a lot of evolution that took place for these travel sites to have insight into the different agencies and be hooked up, accurate, real-time, liquidated inventory, all that good stuff, right? Without going that deep today, what is the mix of a technology, a tool that you could expect from a CSP versus which is equally as valuable, in my opinion, is just helping you down the road, helping you with choice, helping you with architectures, deciding what applications to migrate. What's that nice mix? Are there different flavors? Kind of walk through that.
Yeah, so with, say, Expedia and travel sites, that kind of brokerage, there are a lot of similarities with a cloud brokerage, but one key difference is, if you're buying a airline ticket, you just need somebody to match you with what you're looking for, play the role of the matchmaker, and then they're out of the picture. With a cloud services broker, it's not that simple, right? I mean, that's, as the folks from DPS articulated, the whole IT procurement, the whole process is it's a massive undertaking that has a lot of different stakeholders. So a cloud broker can't just be a straight reseller and say, here's your servers, or here's your assets, go ahead, go do it.
That would be a distributor.
Yeah,
Some form of.
Right.
Yeah.
A customer is looking for a trusted advisor. They're looking for someone who knows the difference between service provider A and B because it's not always clear. They're looking for somebody who can provide certain professional services to fill in a lot of the gaps along the way in a whole IT project. So a cloud broker can be all those things.
Yeah. So in regards to that question around the mix of the technology that a broker may offer, and I know you guys get involved in a lot of cloud discussions. That's your career. That's the company.
Right.
How much of it's tools, and how much is it just consultative advisory type work? Where's a happy medium?
Yeah, I would just say that a lot of it is also how soon you can adopt, right? And I think it is a combination of the tool, right? Whether you have the time to invest yourself into the tool sets that's required to have that intelligence into the cloud, or in some cases it may make more sense to leverage a CSP that already has that tool set, already has that expertise, right, and that knowledge behind that to help you adopt. And part of that is how quickly you can adopt. I mean, that's if you make an investment, and there is an investment in taking a step to go into the public cloud, whatever the application may be or whatever the solution may be, it is a return on the investment now. How soon you can adapt that change.
Yeah.
So again, it's kind of a two-way street, right? Sometimes the technology enables the process, and then sometimes the process dictates how you customize the tools. But one of the kind of the key differentiators that we were in the original question was that how is cloud a little bit different in other types of brokerages? And I think the biggest difference is that with airline tickets, it's pretty transactional, right? And there's very little SLA involved. You're buying something, you use it. If American Airlines or Southwest cancels a flight, it doesn't really prevent that organization from buying tickets from American, but with cloud, it's a long, with the way cloud is purchased and procured, it's a long-term commitment, right? You're paying monthly, you're paying in some cases hourly, and you need to make sure that there's appropriate the SLAs that you set out are met, and you need to monitor if that the provider that you originally chose continues to fit the workload and the needs of the organization. And again, with the beauty of the cloud is that if it doesn't, it's becoming easier to migrate, to move. It's becoming less sticky than it was in traditional IT, right? Back in the old days, you deployed a mainframe, you're stuck with it for 30 years. Now, again, you go and you choose a particular cloud provider. You can. It's, again, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's a lot easier to move it to a different provider like Navisite or Azure or all the other cloud providers.
And Tom, continuing down that path, as a solutions architect, when you're engaging a customer and they ask you, today I've made a point to ask every panelist
Right.
about how to help with priorities.
Mm-hmm.
How do you guys, what is your philosophy, or how do you address that when someone says, okay, here are my 5, you can't do all 5 at one time? And
Right.
it's a big deal, as Larry just mentioned, can you even move? How fast, do you have the buy-in, all those types of things.
Right.
How do you help with that prioritization?
So again, it's never, as we've talked before, it's never an all-in type of thing. You have to identify which applications you want to move to the cloud, and the only way you can identify that is by taking an assessment and figuring out, taking an inventory of your applications and what's available and how they're running, and so on. And then you have to factor that from a benefit standpoint. Is there cost benefit? Is there performance benefit? And then also you have to align that with it. How easy is it to move that application, right? If it's a small, it's a kind of standalone application that runs on Linux, it's a lot easier to move maybe web-based application versus a mainframe application where you have to re-architect, redesign, redevelop that application. And the only way, because there's very few applications that are perfect for the cloud. But what you need to do is you identify what you have, again, take an inventory of what your applications are, how they're performing, how they're running, and then score them based on kind of those 2 axes, right? Are we getting any gain from moving it to the cloud, and versus how easy it is to move to the cloud?
John, from a transformation standpoint, how would a cloud broker, the business model, help someone answer that question, in your opinion, about what apps to move?
Yeah, so I think another great benefit of a cloud services broker is they can take a step back and assess the entire organization and see, this is your portfolio of applications, and come up with a strategic roadmap. I think that word's come up many times throughout the day. Perhaps it was NASCIO or maybe even government technology. They did a study recently where they surveyed a lot of state CIOs or CIOs, and about 70 to 80% of public entities are using the cloud in some sort of fashion, but only about 30% of those have a cloud roadmap. And it's very striking because your chances of success increases dramatically if you have a roadmap, if you can identify the low-hanging fruit, you can identify the quick wins. How do you get more people to buy in from the executive level to the program level to the IT department to procurement folks? So having that strategy, a comprehensive cloud strategy and a roadmap can definitely help answer that question of, how do you prioritize?
Larry, let's take that a step further. You've engaged a customer. You're helping them, further develop out their account, understand not only your services better, but the landscape. And they've decided to, engage with you guys. How do you start to talk with them about cost and budgeting? I mean, how do you address that? It's hard not to keep coming back to cost.
Yeah.
We've all been conditioned to go, it's less. And I love the candid nature of the panelists today. I mean, I think the majority of them said, rule of thumb, don't expect that. Get the value out of it, put a risk, premium and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
How do you guys go about handling that?
It's not easy. It's not an easy task, and that's
because they're conditioned to think it's going to be less.
right. And what they save today, or the cost that it costs today, may be completely different as the solution evolves over time, or even periodically throughout a given time. So that, again, it goes back to this, knowledge is key, right? And part of that knowledge is really what a solution like Science Logic can bring to the table for a CSP, or what we provide for a CSP, or even the larger enterprises, is that visibility into the infrastructure, into how is that application performing immediately or over time, and how it scales. And that is really the importance of those tools that I mentioned before. That skill set. Do you have the skill set or the investment in that skill set to really know the true costs associated with the performance of that application over time? Because it will change, it does change, and is there really, OpEx versus CapEx, right? And it really becomes, a kind of a moving target. There is cost benefits associated, but obviously it depends on the application, it depends on the capital expenditure that you've already invested versus
Right.
what you're going to relinquish over time.
Tom, from again, I'm using the word tools, whether it's a tool, it's a process. Take it a step further. Where do you guys go from there? Like, what is your approach, the methodology that you guys have? I'll ask you more specific. What's that deliverable look like? If someone asks you that question, give me a
Right.
budget or a forecast.
So again, based on the tools, right? To get a forecast or a number or price with the way the pricing model of cloud, you have to have pretty accurate estimates of how what's needed to perform that application, because in the traditional IT world, you said, okay, I needed a 4-core machine with this gigs of RAM, and and you bought it from one of your hardware vendors, and then you paid X thousands of dollars, and you put it in your data center, and that was pretty much the cost of that. But with cloud, there's again, there's subscription costs, but there's also variable costs. How much network traffic, because that's generally variable. How much traffic is getting moved out of the cloud. That's something that you can't unless you know how much traffic's coming from that application. You really can't estimate how much it's going to cost. How does did you buy 4 CPUs for that application because it runs it needs 4 all the time, or does it only need it one time a year? Right? Again, you look at how Amazon or infrastructure as a service kind of developed. Amazon built all this infrastructure for the Christmas season, which is happening very soon, and it required about 10x amount of infrastructure that they needed for the rest of the year, and so they had all this other infrastructure that was sitting idle for the rest of the year, and they essentially sold it off to internal customers, and then eventually sold it off to external customers. Well, when you look at your applications, you actually have to understand that also. You can't just look at how much your workload profile looks for this month. You have to look at over a long period of time to see if is it a steady application. If it's a steady application, it's very easy to gauge how much it's going to cost. But if it runs at a certain level and it spikes up, then you have to see there's different types of services, right? Can you use the elasticity of the cloud? So you can go and say, for these months, I'm only using one system, but if that system can scale out over a period of time, for spikes, then I only have to pay for 4 servers or the 4 cores or whatever it may be for that 1 month, and you have cost benefit. But now if you bought that capacity for the whole year, then probably you're not going to get the cost benefit of the cloud.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's going to tie down to, you should have the same visibility of what you have today in your legacy infrastructure as what you have out in the public cloud.
Equal to or greater than.
Yeah.
Right.
Should probably be the rule of
Right.
thumb.
Whether it's on-premise, off-premise, physical, virtual, whether it's multiple clouds, right? So that's the key.
John, taking that a step further, obviously, analyzing the cost, you mentioned some of the benefits. Where do you see let's take the next 3 years, 4 years out, and cloud service, as it applies to the public sector? There are some are very subtle, some are big. But as working with the DIR and in your background, what do you see that the CSB value over the next 3 to 4 years, other than just the value today? Is it going to be a bigger value? Is it going to be a buy-in cycle? How do you see that maturing?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I spent some time with DIR evaluating emerging technologies, and
Maybe a little bit about the pilot. There was a background to that.
And so just from my experience of evaluating cloud, mobility, BYOD, big data, a wide range of emerging technologies, one thing I learned is it's constantly evolving, right? It's a moving target. This is kind of a silly example, but 5 years ago, if we're up here and I'm looking out at the crowd and I see a lot of people on their devices, I'm going to be a little bummed out because I'm thinking, oh, you guys aren't paying attention to me, you're doing your email. 2 years ago, if we're up here and I'm looking out in the crowd and I see a lot of people on their devices, I'd be pretty encouraged because I think, oh, everybody's tweeting about me. Today, it's going to be some kind of mixture, right? It's constantly evolving. And I mean, that's kind of
And
a
you're
silly
not
example.
stopping it. I think that's
Yeah,
number one.
and it's not that any of us, a single driver is dictating the rules. It's going to evolve as it goes. And so, where would a CSB be 3 to 5 years from now?
From a public sector
From the
entity
public
standpoint.
sector, I
Yeah.
think, also I've spent a lot of time with CIOs that are not a big fan of the traditional IT procurement cycle. They don't want to just, here's a project, vendor A, you go run with it, come back to me when it's finished, right? They want the visibility. They want a certain amount of control. And I think as a service broker, it would be wise of us to give these folks the tools to empower them to gain that visibility so that they don't have to, so they can have that in-house. What are the tools that we can provide so that we're not just a distributor? We're not just peddling products,
Or
but
an integrator.
we're integrating,
Yeah.
we're automating,
Right.
we're providing a lot of the services to make things easier for the public sector to do along the way. I mean, there's not a single thing we can do that will take care of everything, but there are a lot of small pieces along the way that a broker can provide as a service to expedite the process or to add visibility or to add value or to cut costs in those areas.
Yeah, I think that's really key too, the enabling part, right? You can enable them to take some of the CSB role as well. It's not a zero-sum game.
Right.
But if you look at buying software, having a huge project, a huge deliverable, well, cloud's really just turn that upside down. Where you go buy something from a distributor, you engage with a large integrator, and then you put a huge timeline and a budget on it. I mean, now you can buy things in bite sizes.
Yeah.
So those segments, those responsibilities have changed greatly.
Right.
Tom, what is your opinion on the outlook?
So, I think as the current services that are being offered, they become more commoditized, right? The broker will facilitate being able to take advantage of that commoditization and to reap the rewards or the cost rewards of those services.
Right.
But as you've seen with all these different vendors going into the cloud services, there's going to be new cloud services all the time. So the broker will be able to keep track of getting that technology and be able to provide that and give it again the end users a way to consume that. Again, and within that controlled manner, right? So being able to allow organizations to adopt technologies more quickly, new technologies more quickly, but then for the older technology, more commoditized technology, be able to facilitate taking advantage of the cost reductions. Again, Amazon's dropped their prices over 45 times since they were in inception, right? So again, they're dropping their prices, and it's going to get lower. And there's definitely a price war, and you want to take advantage of it, and the broker enables that.
Yeah. Larry, as we kind of wrap up here, if you were sitting in front of somebody and all topics today that have come up, I mean just a gazillion of them, right? Who do you ask to come to the table when you want to sit down with them and give them the best insight possible, the stakeholders on their side, the head of IT, the finance? I mean, are you asking for a full 360 of the company to get buy-in to take them down this journey? And I mean, and is it your customers that do that? I would think that they have the most success. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it has to be top down. I mean, obviously, there's usually, fortunately, or sometimes unfortunately, there's got to be some type of champion that's going to champion and be a not necessarily an innovator, but someone that's willing to understand the full risk and reward of what a solution like this can bring to the table. I mean, we've talked about evolving. It is evolving. What's commoditized today in the public cloud is only going to get more and more commoditized. I think the three fastest areas of moving to the cloud are email, storage, and data, right? So you know, how you get there is how easily you can integrate with your existing business practices, right? So that touches everybody in the organization,
Absolutely.
right? It's not just your storage guy, it's not just your network guy, it's not just your server guy. It has to be bought in. And then obviously the business owners, that's the most important. You get the business owners behind it and they understand the value. That's where it's like, you know, domino effect.
Right, right. John, why don't you back clean up? What are your thoughts on that? If you had to sit in front of somebody tomorrow and paint the picture for them for success.
Yeah, I think definitely it's going to be a balance, you know, in so many different areas. I mean, trying to gather the right people in the room, trying to get the right information, trying to figure out where to start. You know, that a lot of times CIOs, they view themselves as, you know, they're auto mechanics working on a car, except the car is on the freeway going 70 miles per hour and it's not slowing down.
Yeah.
Right? You can't just stop, work on something, and then put it back. Everything's constantly moving. You also mentioned, Tab, you know, the pilot. The DR did a pilot.
Yes.
I want to make sure I touch up on that. I forgot to answer that.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was some background of how
Yes.
the Cloud Services Brokerage contract actually came to light before,
Yes.
and you were involved in helping pilot that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. So when I was at DIR, this was around 2011. There was a pilot done to test cloud, you know, with 3 different agencies and 3 different applications, and they're very different in nature in the customer base and type of data. And it was a proof of concept to see, you know what happens if you pull out the infrastructure into the cloud. And it's very interesting because they did a white paper afterwards with about 11 different lessons learned, and you can get this from their website. None of the 11 lessons learned were related to the technical solution. None of it was about the actual IT component of it. You know, it was all about the operational, all about the business, all about the
Administration.
procurement, the
Yeah.
administration. You know, all these different tips. How do you have a successful cloud migration? How do you have a successful integration? A lot of the pitfalls, a lot of the gotchas are not related to the actual solution. And I think that holds true for a lot of different IT projects. So, kind of circling back, you know, who do you have to have in the room? You got to have those stakeholders in there. You got to have the champions. You have to get buy-in from top, like Larry said, from top down. I think, Tab, you had a slide in the very beginning that had a lot of arrows pointing from, you know, 7 different folks, stakeholders within an
swivel chair,
agency,
that's
all pointing down, looking down at IT.
That's
And,
right.
you know, it involves a lot of parties.
Good job, guys. Wrap it up.